Unexpectedly falling asleep in a billionaire's arms reveals an incredible transformation. Hours, Sarah sank into the velvety cushions of the library nook, her body's exhaustion overwhelming her determination. 2 jobs layered with stress had honed her ability to push through fatigue. Yet tonight she could not fight it. The quiet hum of the library melted away as she curled into the corner, visions of bills and meals and Mia's bright smile blurring together. Her dreams bowled over the tension of balancing her daughter's needs with her ambition to escape this suffocating loop. She had long been aware that every dollar counted, yet her dreams of education felt equally important. A twinge of guilt twisted inside her. What was she doing? How could she even think about university? Those thoughts crashed together until sleep whisked her away. When she awoke, she wasn't surrounded by dusty books. Instead, she was cradled in unfamiliar arms. Panic surged through her. Nathan, the billionaire, was more than just a man rumored to have golden opportunities at his fingertips. He bared his own troubles, even if they were cloaked beneath glistening facades. The magnetic warmth between them pulsed in the small space, an unlikely cocoon of wonder amid her disheveled life. Could this be the change she longed for, an escape from her constricting existence? Yet with each interaction, the pit of anxiety deepened. She was acutely aware of the chasm dividing them, his wealth and prestige stacked against her struggle for basic stability. Could a woman like her ever truly belong in his world? He insisted on attending her university launch, where she would fight for hard-won respect, but the shadows of her past whispered doubts. Would he eventually see her as just another conquest, or would she be something worth keeping? As Sarah committed to her studies, she grappled with an inner turmoil. The halls filled with privilege breathed judgment, reminding her constantly that she was an outsider. The thrilling pursuit of knowledge felt tainted with a bitter aftertaste of doubt, pulling her between fear of failure and a desperate desire to thrive. Every glance from peers became barbed wire, sparking doubts. What if they knew? The facade of confidence unraveled as she hesitated over assignments, her breath quickening, heart racing each time she stepped into a classroom. For every step forward, she felt a fierce pull back into that life of waitressing and scrubbing floors. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Then comes the storm. A rumor swirls in Nathan's elite circles, leaving Sarah frozen in fear. The whispers threatened to expose their relationship. She found herself standing at a crossroad, love on one side and burgeoning ambition on the other. Closing her eyes, she envisioned Mia's face, the child she had always fought for, now a reminder of what losing might mean. Could she allow herself to be a casualty of someone's careless whisper? Could she muster enough courage to battle both her insecurities and potential heartbreak? Tonight, in the stillness, everything hinged on a choice. Would she let the fear of loss floor her, or would she rise up, clinging fiercely to the dreams that should never belong to just the privileged? The following week unfolded in waves of anxiety and resolve. Sarah pressed her back against the sun-warmed wall of the library, the air filled with the soft rustle of pages turning. After deep breaths, she waded back into the world of academia. The whispers lurked in her mind, but she wouldn't let them corrosively dictate her path. Each lecture was a battle, yet the desire to rise above her past ignited an urgency she never knew she had. However, the looming shadow of Nathan's world remained the elite's judgments, their heightening curiosity, their relentless scrutiny. It flashed through her mind. If they knew who you really are. Consciously, she drew strength from Mia's dreams. Her daughter deserved a mother who fought for what she believed in, who didn't let fear diminish her worth. Classes were evolving from stressful encounters into opportunities for growth, as she grappled with concepts that once seemed unattainable. The detailed examinations of case studies, The discussions laced with academic fervor, each moment became a reminder that she, too, belonged in these spaces. Late nights spent poring over notes turned into moments of clarity. She discovered a passion for social justice, the interplay of economic disparity igniting a fire within her. Out of the corner of her eye, she caught sight of her classmates engaging in lively discussions. Observing their confidence, Sarah felt the tendrils of envy creep in. They moved through the hallways with assurance, still inciting her self-doubt. Yet, instead of succumbing, she resolved to challenge the trivial voices that echoed her insecurities. "Keep pushing. You know why you're here," she murmured to herself, surreptitiously clenching her fist, the reminder of her purpose forcing its way through the despair. Finding her rhythm marked the first step toward transformation. One evening, after finishing an assignment that brought her to the edge of her capacity, Sarah allowed herself a moment of reprieve. She reached out to Nathan, texting him a simple invitation to study together. To her surprise, he responded quickly, enthusiasm bubbling beneath his words. The prospect of blending their worlds sent an anxious thrill skittering through her. What if this step solidified their connection or just highlighted the differences? As they settled into a booth at the cafe, the ambience buzzed with life around them. Nathan leaned across the table, revealing the admiration he had worked so hard to conceal. The affection forged a momentary island of safety. But as they discussed schoolwork, the whispers climbed back in. Was she really enough? Would he retreat, rendered disillusioned by her struggles? Outside the cafe, the air crackled with the night. A reality check hit her. Why should she shrink who she was? She firmly pulled herself into the conversation, sharing insights from her research on economic inequality. Nathan listened intently, pride lighting his eyes, and it ignited a steely determination within her. She wasn't here to simply chase dreams. She was here to claim them, expand her horizons, and build a future for Mia. Yet, the next morning arrived draped in uncertainty. With contrasting emotions swirling, Sarah questioned if this newfound courage could withstand the onslaught of judgment that lay ahead. Without notice, she ran into Heather, an outspoken classmate with an insatiable appetite for gossip. Their eyes locked, and a tension flickered in the air. The confrontation was unavoidable. "Thinking you can belong here?" Heather sneered, piercing through Sarah's facade. Swallowing hard, Sarah prepared to confront the whispers of doubt, but hesitated. This was a test, a chance to voice her worth. Could she face Heather, or would those doubts reign supreme? It was evident destiny was pushing her toward a decisive moment. Would she rise to meet the challenge, or retreat back into the shadows, forever haunted by the eyes of those who doubted her? The tension in the air crackled like electricity as Heather's sharp words hung between them. For a fleeting moment, Sarah's breath hitched, her mind racing to quell the tide of fear threatening to pull her under. She was aware of the eyes watching from every corner of the campus, always calculating, always judging. But today, she felt a rush, an unexpected cleaving of self-doubt that spurred her into action. Why wouldn't I belong? Sarah found her voice, shaky but determined. The words were out before she could second-guess them. "I'm here, just like everyone else, working my way through this program." She stood straighter, a small victory against the whispers that threatened to upend her resolve. Heather's expression shifted from amusement to annoyance, surprised by the strength in Sarah's response. That moment of defiance, however fleeting, felt exhilarating. But as Heather scoffed, Sarah realized that a different battle lay ahead. This confrontation could either lower her guard or galvanize her spirit further. What are you going to do next? Join a study group and think that LL erase your past? Heather's mocking smirk made Sarah's stomach churn. But there was no retreat now. No, Sarah replied, fierce determination igniting her. "I'll do the work, and I won't let your opinion shape who I am. You don't get to decide what I'm capable of." With those words, Sarah felt the shackles of her past begin to crack, if only slightly, and a glimpse of possibility emerged. Heather rolled her eyes, but the sneering force of her words had less impact than before. Sarah could sense the shift. The gauntlet was thrown, and Heather's confidence was waning, revealing cracks of insecurity in the armor she donned so fearlessly. Instead of feeling triumphant, however, Sarah was left with a tinge of confusion. Could she really stand her ground in a world that had so often felt like a battlefield? With Heather's retreating figure, Sarah felt an unfamiliar lightness within. There was still uncertainty about her journey ahead, but she understood that she had a voice worth hearing. The whispers, while still lurking, had been confronted, and for the first time, she believed they could be silenced, at least temporarily. Later that evening, she found herself back in the library, surrounded by darkness and the quiet drone of study. The warmth of the sun in the earlier hours was replaced by a stillness that hung in the air. Inspired by her boldness, Sarah turned her focus back to her studies, her mind racing with fresh ideas as she translated her confrontation into a new resolve. She would write about economic disparities, but through a lens of lived experiences rather than statistics. This was where her voice would resonate beyond the classroom. The ink flowed easily, thoughts weaving together seamlessly as she drew connections between her personal life and the academic theories she was learning. She felt powerful. Ideas manifested into paragraphs adorned with passion. Her efforts were not mere assignments. They were a call to action. But as the clock ticked later into the night, exhaustion dragged at her eyelids. As if sensing her fatigue, her phone buzzed with a message from Nathan. "Want to join a group study session tomorrow? I think we have a lot to talk about." Her heart raced unexpectedly at the thought. Was this just another academic collaboration? Or were there deeper undercurrents in their connection? Sarah hesitated, unsure if she was ready to share the complexities of her recent experience with him. Tomorrow would not just be about group studies. It would be about truly opening herself up, not just academically but personally too. A mixture of curiosity and anticipation surged within her as she typed a quick reply. "Sure, count me in." With that decision made, Sarah reclined back in her chair, an unconscious smile creeping upon her lips. She might have found one piece of it, the belonging she yearned for in this academic realm. The path remained uncertain, but she would embrace it. Stakes were high, but so were the possibilities. As she gathered her belongings, a thought crept in. How would Nathan react to seeing this new side of her? Would he admire her strength, or retreat at the realization of her vulnerabilities? The next day would bring more than just textbooks and theories. It would unveil layers of self she hadn't yet confronted. But the question still loomed. Could embracing her past propel her future, or would it risk shattering her fragile newfound confidence? The next day arrived drenched in sunlight, a sharp contrast to Sarah's tumultuous thoughts. She sat at the edge of her bed, fingers fidgeting with the hem of her sweater. Every moment felt heavy with potential. Today was pivotal. It represented a chance to confront parts of herself she had kept hidden even from herself. Could sharing her vulnerabilities truly reshape her identity? As she dressed, Sarah considered the intention behind Nathan's invitation. Was he genuinely supportive, or merely curious about a friendship he hadn't fully explored? These questions nagged at her, but she shoved them aside, focusing instead on the strength she had briefly felt the day before. She adapted her outfit, choosing something that made her feel confident, a crisp white blouse paired with tailored trousers that mirrored the sharpness she sought to embody. Arriving at the library, she spotted Nathan at a long table, his eyes flicking toward her as she approached. The warmth of his smile cut through her nerves, yet it also heightened her awareness of the uncertainty looming within. What if she exposed the softer, more vulnerable parts of herself and found he wasn't ready to handle them? "Hey, I'm glad you came." His casual demeanor eased some of the tension that had built up in her chest. She returned his smile while taking a seat opposite him. They exchanged small talk about the upcoming projects, but the conversation felt superficial. Sarah sensed a deeper connection yearning to emerge. As they opened their notes, their natural chemistry began to blend with more serious discussions about their readings. Sarah felt the flow of ideas between them, but soon realized that the real dialogue was happening beneath the surface. She needed to take a leap, to share her story, the one that shaped her understanding of economic disparities. "Nathan," she began, her voice trembling, "can I tell you something personal?" The question felt bold, but she firmly believed her lived experiences could introduce a layer of depth to their discussions. "Of course. I'm listening," he encouraged, leaning forward, genuinely attentive. With every word, Sarah felt as if she was shedding a layer of her past, a past filled with struggles, family challenges, and the shame that often accompanied it. She recounted her upbringing, emphasizing how financial instability had sculpted her views on privilege and opportunity. The act of vocalizing these experiences empowered her. The hesitant silence he maintained felt supportive, not judgmental. As she shared, Nathan nodded, excitement flickering in his eyes. "You know," he said, interrupting her moment of vulnerability, "your perspective is invaluable. You see things many overlook. That could really influence our project." The way he regarded her flickered confidence in her spine. His acknowledgement felt like the glue she needed to solidify her sense of belonging. They transitioned into brainstorming, Nathan feeding her ideas and offering suggestions that resonated with her experiences. This partnership felt revolutionary, yet entirely grounded in honesty and mutual respect. However, beneath this exhilarating exchange, the nagging doubt whispered in the back of her mind. What if revealing this side of herself created a chasm between them as they traversed deeper realms of intellect and emotion? The fear lingered, keeping her on edge. Eventually, they fell into a comfortable rhythm. Sarah felt invigorated as concepts intertwined with her reality, and she began developing a project that was undeniably personal. But with every stroke of insight, fear of approaching the topic of her past hovered perilously close. As they gathered their things to leave, Sarah's heart raced with questions. How would their collaboration lay the foundation for their connection? Was there potential for something deeper, too? Before she could stop herself, she asked, "Nathan, do you believe someone can really change the world? Do you think understanding our backgrounds can drive meaningful action?" He paused, deliberating. "It depends on how willing we are to face our truths and act on them. It's the vulnerability that can lead to real growth. Maybe it's not just about changing the world, but about changing ourselves first." His words lingered in the air, heavy and pregnant with possibility. The weightiness reminded her of the choices she would soon face. Would she allow herself to be brave enough to confront the fears ignited by this journey? That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, illuminating the library's walls, Sarah understood she was at a crossroads. Ahead lay a chance to transform not just her project but her entire identity. Could she muster the courage to navigate through the labyrinths of academia while staying true to her story? Just as she felt a wave of resolve, her phone chimed again. A text from Heather. "Miss me?" The old specter of doubt re-emerged, threatening to overshadow her recent triumph. The turbulence within her surged once more. Did she have the strength to fend off the lingering shadows of her past? Or would they collide head-on with the bright future she started to envision with Nathan? With breath caught, she stared at the screen, the message unfolding a new storm of conflict. Sarah's hand trembled slightly as she stared at Heather's message, awareness flooding her mind like a tide pulling her back to familiar shores. It felt so easy to slip back into companionship with someone who represented her past. Yet, something deeper called her to remain anchored in the present, to build the potentiality that Nathan had ignited in her. She set the phone down, steeling her resolve. The next morning came with the weight of expectancy. As Sarah rushed through her morning routine, she caught her reflection in the mirror and saw a flicker of changed confidence woven with uncertainty, but radiating possibility. The crisp white blouse she wore, a symbol of this commitment to reinvent her narrative, reminded her that today was not just another day. It was an opportunity. At the library, Nathan was already seated, flipping through notes. Something in his focused demeanor drew her in. She approached, each step igniting the courage she had worked so hard to cultivate. Today, they wouldn't just discuss theories, they would dig deeper, explore uncharted territories beyond their academic ambitions. "Good morning," Nathan greeted, his enthusiasm palpable. "I've been thinking about our previous discussion. It's clear that our backgrounds shape our work, right? What about a section in our project focused on personal stories?" The idea sparked excitement within her. Yes, but maybe we should consider how storytelling, specifically personal narratives, can influence economic perspectives or policies. My experiences taught me that statistics numb empathy, but stories can evoke action. He leaned in, absorbing her words, validating her thoughts in a way that ignited fire beneath her skin. They exchanged ideas, the momentum building like a wave. As articulate and compelling as Nathan was, something about her perspective felt fresh, untouched. Was it her newfound clarity, or was it his innate belief in her? But as they delved deeper into the project, Sarah's familiar fears began to creep in again. She struggled with whether her past experiences, her entrenched insecurities, her family's unending financial struggles would enhance their collaboration or invite a torrent of doubts. Would revealing too much create an intricacy she wasn't willing to navigate? The delicate balance of vulnerability hovered like a specter over their exchange. Nathan, how do you handle sharing your story? How much of yourself do you let others see? He paused, a thoughtful expression flashing across his face. It's a risk, but I find it's all about connection. The more I give, the more I invite others to share. Scary, sure, but that's where true growth happens. Plus, if we're doing this project, it's about more than just us. It's about those who can't speak up. We owe them honesty. The weight of his words seemed to pierce through her reservations. In a world swathed in appearances, Nathan articulated something profound. Was her purpose less about shielding herself and more about advocating for those stories that needed to be told? A new determination flickered within her, igniting further resolve to step beyond her comfort zone. Later that week, Sarah attended a seminar on economic equity. As she sat listening to seasoned professionals speak passionately about their journeys, she reflected on her own. The room resonated with stories born from hardship but laced with hope. For the first time, she felt an irresistible urge to share her own story, a chance to connect, to be seen among peers and mentors who might carry her experiences into broader realms of influence. Afterward, she approached the speaker, a successful economist who had once faced similar struggles. Do you think revealing vulnerability in your story was crucial? How did it shape your career? The economist nodded knowingly. Absolutely. It invites empathy and opens doors. But remember, it's not just about sharing the struggle. It's about demonstrating where you find strength. That's compelling. Driving home, Sarah felt exhilarated. She had turned a corner, a realization that embracing her past was not a weakness, but a weapon. Finally feeling the magnetism of her narrative, she recognized it could propel her not just in academia, but in building connections that mattered. As she parked her car, the familiar chatter of her phone buzzed in her pocket. Another message from Heather. So what are we doing this weekend? Let us catch up. Sarah paused, a mix of emotions brimming within. Expedite the return to an old life, or allow the opportunity to reshape her path. It was becoming evident she had to confront the significance of her past to embrace the promise of her future. With newfound clarity and tension mounting, she opened the message. How would this decision redefine the woman she was becoming? And could she truly take Nathan's advice and act on this self-discovery? The path ahead was uncertain, charged with choices that could intertwine her old and new selves. As she debated, another thought gripped her. What if now was the time to invite others into her journey? As uncertainty hung in the air, she realized a decision awaited her. Would she unleash a narrative that could change not just her future but the futures of those she wished to inspire? With anticipation thrumming in her chest, she typed a response to Heather, crafting a message that could forge a new direction, integrating her old world with the burgeoning one ahead. What would it mean to face her past head-on? Sarah took a deep breath, her fingers hovering over the screen as she crafted her response to Heather. She hesitated, grappling with the knot in her stomach. How could she simplify a complex decision into a few short sentences? Yet, this was a pivotal moment, an opportunity to shape her narrative into something stronger. With a sudden burst of courage, she typed, "Let us meet on Saturday. I'd love to catch up and share what has been going on." Pressing send, she felt a weight lift, mingling excitement with the remnants of doubt. The days leading up to the weekend were charged with anticipation. Sarah found herself oscillating between eagerness and anxiety. The balance of her old life and a burgeoning sense of purpose was delicate, and she feared how her choice might weigh against the new identity she had begun to carve out. When Saturday arrived, Sarah walked into the familiar cafe, decorated with posters of local artists. The comforting ambience was juxtaposed with an undercurrent of tension swelling in her stomach. Heather was already seated, her expression unreadable as she waved Sarah over. "Hey, it's been ages," Heather exclaimed, her smile bright but superficial, hinting at underlying questions. "Yeah, it has," Sarah replied, searching Heather's eyes for signs of judgment or curiosity regarding her recent changes. As they settled into their conversation, Heather recounted tales of work and relationships, her enthusiasm a stark contrast to the contemplative thoughts swirling in Sarah's mind. For once, Sarah felt decidedly reticent about sharing. Was her journey understood in this old backdrop, or would it feel alien to Heather, someone who had largely remained unchanged? "I've been working on some projects focused on economic equity," Sarah offered cautiously, testing the waters. "Oh, like charity work?" Heather asked, the skepticism palpable. Sarah swallowed hard, feeling the ambivalence of her position. More like analyzing the impact of personal narratives within economics. "It's transformative. Stories can inspire real change." Heather arched her brow, and Sarah's heart raced. Could she truly articulate the depth of her newfound passion? She pressed forward, determined to make her message clear. "I believe understanding individual experiences can challenge policies that seem linear and cold. They deserve a voice." "That sounds interesting," Heather remarked, but the distance was apparent. The conversation felt like strained backpedaling. Sarah recognized that not everyone would embrace her desire for authenticity. Still, she would not recoil. She had taken a step toward being seen and heard. As they finished their coffees, Sarah felt a knot of frustration. The same old cycles loomed like clouds overhead. Was she outgrowing the relationship? Suddenly determined, she decided she could no longer indulge the shadows from her past. "You know, Heather, I've been through a lot. I want to share my authentic self. This is who I am now." Heather's expression tightened, signaling confusion. Was there something wrong with how things were before? Sarah's heart thumped as tension crackled in the air. This confrontation was long overdue. Sarah leaned in, breathing deeply. "This isn't about what was wrong. It's about who I am becoming. I want more for myself, more than what we had." Heather fell silent, and Sarah felt exposed yet liberated. It was time to embrace her transformation fully. The weight of her past began to dissipate, a shift occurring within her that she hadn't anticipated. Leaving the cafe, Sarah felt distinctly lighter, empowered by the clarity of her intentions. She knew she might need to redefine some of her relationships, but it was worth it to forge ahead into the future she desired. Back in her car, her phone buzzed again, this time a message from Nathan. "Are you still interested in working on our project together? I think we have something special here." A rush of adrenaline surged through her. She could feel the trajectory of her journey converging. How could she both dive into her projects and build connections based on authenticity? As Sarah read his message once more, she grasped the significance of timing. What if this was her chance to not just work together but to invite Nathan into her evolving narrative? A deep-seated determination ignited within her. The moment had arrived to face the fullness of her story, not just in academic terms but as a rallying call for her journey ahead. Excitement tingled at her fingertips as she began typing a response, envisioning the synergy they could create. How could she leverage this moment to elevate their project beyond mere academic borders into something far more impactful? Would she have the courage to articulate her vision fully to herself and to him? The glow of her phone screen illuminated Sarah's determined expression as she crafted her message to Nathan. The words flowed with an urgency she hadn't anticipated, each sentence reinforcing her newfound clarity and ambition. "I'm absolutely in. Let us explore how our combined perspectives can reshape our approach." Once she hit send, though, a flicker of doubt crept in. What if Nathan didn't see the potential she envisioned? As she drove home, The city lights blurred into streaks, mirroring her racing thoughts. She had come this far, yet an undercurrent of anxiety threatened to drag her down. The following day, Sarah buried herself in research, an invigorating process that grounded her thoughts. She devoured articles and papers about narrative framing in economics, feverishly noting connections between stories, personal experiences, and systemic barriers. Her mind sparked with ideas, enthralled by the challenge of her project. This was her passion, something she hadn't felt in a long time. As the afternoon sunlight streamed through her window, Nathan's response arrived. "Great to hear. How about we meet tomorrow to brainstorm?" Sarah felt a rush of exhilaration. The collaborative energy was palpable. She quickly agreed, and the excitement swelled within her, prompting her to revisit the flickering fears that had shadowed her meeting with Heather. What if Nathan pushed back on her ideas? Would he respect her narrative-driven approach? The questions gnawed at her, but she shoved them aside, focusing instead on the possibilities their partnership could yield. The weight of her past felt lighter, and with it came an unshakable resolve to embrace her evolving identity. That night, sleep eluded her as her mind raced with thoughts of their meeting. She envisioned conversations rich with creativity and challenged the way Nathan's eyes lit up when discussing bold concepts. But could she back up her passion with solid arguments? What if he doubted her abilities, or worse, didn't he take her seriously? The next morning arrived with heavy clouds, a stark contrast to her internal storm of anticipation. Despite the looming darkness, Sarah dressed with purpose, each article of clothing feeling like a piece of armor. She reviewed her notes again, feeling the words settle into her mind like breadcrumbs leading her onward. When she arrived at the cafe, the air crackling with energy, she found Nathan already seated with a notebook sprawled open before him. He looked up, a warm smile spreading across his face as he waved her over. "Glad you could make it. I've been looking over some ideas," he said, gesturing to the papers scattered on the table. Sarah took a deep breath, her nerves flickering like the shadows outside. They began to share their visions, a dance of dialogue that both thrilled and intimidated her. Nathan's enthusiasm was infectious, yet Sarah found herself struggling to weave her narrative threads into the conversation. As he spoke about operational strategies, her mind fizzled with uncertainty. How could she pivot this discussion back to her story-centric approach without sounding naive? "Sarah, what do you think?" Nathan suddenly asked, tilting his head in her direction. She blinked, caught off guard. Panic surged within her. This was the moment to own her voice, to assert the significance of narratives over cold data. "I think," she started, heart racing, "that the personal stories behind the data are what truly drive change. They evoke empathy and understanding, and without that, we risk losing the human element." As she spoke, a flicker of inspiration ignited within her. She could sense Nathan's interest sharpening. "We can present our findings not just as statistics, but as lived experiences, highlighting the real impacts on people's lives." Nathan leaned back, processing her words, a smile dawning on his face. "Exactly. I hadn't considered framing it this way." From that point forward, the conversation flowed freely, an exhilarating exchange of ideas, a synthesis of their distinct perspectives. Sarah felt alive. She was not just participating, she was contributing profoundly. Each moment built her confidence, reshaping her self-image as not just an analyst, but a storyteller with purpose. As they wrapped up, Nathan looked at her, eyes alight with enthusiasm. "I believe we can make an impact with this approach. Let us make it happen." That affirmation washed over her like a balm. For the first time, she felt a palpable sense of belonging in this environment. Yet as they discussed practical next steps, a creeping thought surfaced. What if she lost this connection in the grind of their pursuit? Heading home, she felt the pull of the familiar tension accompany her. The previous day's clarity was juxtaposed with new uncertainties. Would she maintain this momentum or waver back into self-doubt? The realization hit her squarely: this journey was only beginning, with both potential and peril lying ahead. As she opened her laptop that evening, Sarah resolved to document her thoughts about this transformative partnership, recognizing the power of reflection in driving further growth. Her fingers traced the keyboard, anticipation buzzing beneath her skin. But would the confrontation with her own vulnerabilities challenge her once again? She paused, contemplating the empty page before her. Would she dare to fully reveal her narrative, even if it meant confronting her deeper fears? The next step felt daunting, but she was no longer the same Sarah who had hesitated before. It was time to embrace the narrative she was shaping, whatever it demanded of her. The moment had arrived to confront not just her past, but what her future could hold. The weight of the laptop rested heavily on her knees as Sarah stared at the blinking cursor, frustration pulsing in her temples. She couldn't just draft another list of ideas. This was a moment that called for authenticity, for depth. She took a breath, her heart racing with both excitement and trepidation. This was not merely about the project with Nathan. This was the beginning of a broader dialogue with herself, a confrontation of fears wrapped in possibility. As the nights passed, she found solace in her thoughts, scrawling insights on paper. To tell a story means to expose vulnerability. This phrase echoed in her mind, nudging her to confront the inhibitions that had long clouded her vision. Sarah had always found refuge behind data, using numbers as a shield against genuine connections. But now, it seemed, she was being called to step into a world of emotions and experiences, to strip away the layers of self-protection. Each evening spent reflecting brought clarity. The mornings began to feel different, too, less weighted by anxious anticipation and more filled with purpose. She awoke early, energized by a resolve that had burgeoned within her. The upcoming meeting with Nathan loomed like a beacon, promising potential, but the deeper significance urged her to examine her own motivations more critically. As she prepared for their next discussion, she dove deeper into her own narrative history, seeking the threads that had long been buried. She explored what had shaped her as an analyst, the moments that sparked her initial passion for economic storytelling. This reflection intertwined with her research, revealing a recurring theme: how personal struggles had often clouded her professional identity. The day of their follow-up meeting arrived, and the air buzzed with anticipation for Sarah. This time, she wore a navy blazer that felt tailored to represent the professional image she wanted to embody: sharp, confident, and ready. In the cafe, as she watched Nathan approach, his laptop slung under one arm, she reconsidered what it meant to step into a room as an equal partner rather than a subordinate. "Hey Sarah, ready to dive in?" Nathan greeted, his enthusiasm palpable. "Absolutely," she replied, the words flowing more readily than she had anticipated. With an underlying resolve, she felt she could leverage this partnership into something much deeper than mere collaboration. This was a chance to transform. They slid into discussions, their ideas intertwining as they examined how they might present their findings in a way that would not only inform but also captivate. Nathan shared insights, engaging her with questions that pushed her out of her comfort zone. "Can you think of a specific narrative that could frame our findings?" He probed, his gaze expectant. Instantly, memories flickered behind her eyes, stories from her past that informed her understanding of economic impact. The story of her mother's struggle to make ends meet flooded her thoughts, the lessons on resilience and hope sparking a fire within her. "I have an idea," she said, feeling a surge of confidence. "What if we framed our data around the experiences of families who grapple with economic hardship? Connecting the dots between real stories will make the data resonate more deeply." As she spoke, she saw Nathan nodding with enthusiasm. "That's powerful. The human element is key," he responded, his expression glowing with approval. With each idea shared, she felt her apprehensions break away, replaced by a sense of camaraderie she hadn't expected to find. This collaboration was about more than intellectual synergy. It was about leveraging their unique stories to drive home the importance of their findings. Yet, as the meeting drew to a close, the flickering doubt returned. Would they be able to transform these stories into a compelling narrative without losing sight of the data-driven foundation? The fear of falling short gnawed at her, but the sting was accompanied by an undeniable excitement, a whisper of possibility that urged her to push through. That night, unable to shake off the lingering doubts, Sarah mulled over her thoughts. She opened her laptop again but found herself unable to write. Instead, she immersed herself in the narratives of others. Stories of triumph and defeat, heart-wrenching tales interspersed with incredible resilience flowed through her. What if she allowed their experiences to blend with her own narrative? Just when she thought she would succumb to uncertainty, she picked up her pen and began to compose, concocting a vivid tale shaped by both personal history and newfound understanding. Her emotions poured onto the pages, raw yet meticulously crafted, vibrant yet anchored in realism. As she wrote, a new realization blossomed. This was not just a project. This was an opportunity for transformation. It was time to weave her own story into the larger narrative. And yet, amidst this thrilling journey of self-discovery, the question lingered. Would she be brave enough to face not only the potential for professional change, but also the unsettling prospect of delving deeper into her own unresolved past? With the clock ticking late and her thoughts and ambitions overlapping, Sarah felt a pulsing determination surge. If she was prepared to confront these truths, she might finally grasp the power of narrative storytelling she had long been yearning for. But would it be enough to transcend her fears when the time came to present their work? The sun broke through the clouds as Sarah prepared for the presentation. She gazed at herself in the mirror, the reflection of a woman determined to break free of her past inhibitions. Each piece of her outfit, the fitted blazer, the tailored trousers, felt like armor, instilling her with a sense of authority and confidence. Today was not just about sharing data. Today was about telling a story that mattered. As she gathered her materials, her palms felt clammy, the weight of the presentation pressing down on her. The thought of standing in front of their colleagues brought a dizzying mix of adrenaline and dread. But beneath that churning fear lingered a deeper resolve. She had something worth saying. Something personal, authentic, and impactful, an opportunity to blend her insights with emotion and vulnerability. Arriving at the conference room, she scanned the faces of her peers seated around the long table. Nathan sat at the head, his expression poised and inviting. As she approached, she could feel several eyes assess her like she was a new variable in an equation they were accustomed to solving. Did they see the analyst or the storyteller? Would they accept the fusion of both? "Ready?" Nathan asked, his tone calm, but it did little to soothe her racing heart. "Ready as I'll ever be," she replied, forcing a smile. The familiar tremor of self-doubt crept back into her mind. Would she deliver? Would they embrace the personal stories she hoped to share? Or would they revert to the comfort of analysis and statistics? It was time to confront this pivotal moment. As Nathan began their presentation, Sarah watched him weave the groundwork, skillfully outlining their findings. When he gestured toward her to present their new narrative-driven approach, trepidation wove through her. Taking a slow breath, she prepared to break the cycle of her past. This was her moment to shine, to redefine how she would be perceived. With the click of a button, her slides flashed on the screen, visually compelling and rich with human stories. As she spoke, the familiarity of data crunched under her fingertips transformed into a canvas painted with human emotion. "These findings aren't just numbers," she asserted, her voice steady despite the quivering inside. "They represent the struggles of families like mine. They illustrate resilience, hope, and the lives impacted by economic change." Her narrative unfolded like a living tapestry, each story imbued with her memories and experiences. The room gradually shifted. She witnessed faces soften as they leaned in closer, intrigued. This was not just an academic exercise. This was an exchange of humanity within the rigid framework of economics. An unexpected connection began to take shape, bridging the gap that had once held her back. Yet as she delved deeper, the fear that had once paralyzed her resurfaced. What if this emotional journey revealed too much? What if they rejected her blend of data and personal narrative? It twisted like a knife in her stomach, but she pressed on, determined not to back away from exploring the truths she had buried for so long. As her presentation neared its conclusion, she felt a pull of vulnerability. It was both terrifying and liberating. The notes scattered on the desk beside her highlighted data points, but the real fuel was the passion ignited by her voice. She had relinquished the fear of judgment, at least for this moment. The audience's response exceeded her expectations. Questions flowed organically, exhibiting genuine interest. Nathan's face brightened with surprise and pride, affirming her instincts. Yet, as she basked in the moment, doubts lingered. Had she gone too far? In the intense dialogues that followed, one colleague stood out, a skeptical economist named Lisa, her brow furrowed with skepticism. Interesting perspective, Sarah, but how do we ensure our findings maintain their scientific integrity? Isn't that just emotional storytelling? The question hung heavily in the air, a palpable tension charging the room. Sarah's heart raced, but instead of shrinking back, something clicked inside her. She realized that her narrative did not compromise the data. It enriched it. Isn't data more compelling when it reflects real life? People connect to stories. They remember stories. Lisa crossed her arms, her expression revealing a mix of respect and challenge. Maybe, but do we risk being perceived as unprofessional? Or do we risk being ignored? Sarah countered, her voice steady. A gleam of resolve ignited in her chest. This was the moment of truth, a direct confrontation with her own fears mirrored in Lisa's critique. As discussions ensued, Sarah found herself struggling between defending her approach and embracing the dialogues. With every challenge, she felt herself growing. New perspectives emerged as she began to understand that this was not merely her battle, but a shared discourse, the convergence of intellect and humanity. With the presentation over, Sarah exhaled deeply, flooded with a flood of conflicting emotions. Relief, exhilaration, anxiety. This experience had woven bonds she had not anticipated forming with her colleagues. Yet a gnawing doubt remained. Had she truly conquered her fears or merely skimmed the surface? The realization surged within her. She had begun to rewrite her narrative, but the journey toward authentic storytelling threaded through a labyrinth of questions. Would she have the courage to maintain her newfound identity in a complex world that often championed detachment? As she collected her materials, she found motivation in the prospect of further clarification. She would return to the boardroom transformed, and as they dissected feedback, she would continue to explore the marriage of emotion and data. But she left the meeting room with the unmistakable itch of uncertainty. Would she be able to embrace her authentic voice even when faced with skepticism? The real journey was only just beginning. With the initial wave of the presentation behind her, Sarah felt a surge of determination coursing through her veins. The intertwining of personal narrative and analytical data had begun to carve a unique space for her in the academic world. No longer was she simply an outsider. She was a valuable contributor with a voice that carried weight. Yet, a lingering doubt snuck into her consciousness. Was she ready to thrive in this new identity? As the dust began to settle, she found herself reflecting on the criticisms and encouragement received during the presentation. Colleagues approached her after, expressing admiration for her approach, specifically how her lived experiences informed the project. Their openness filled her with an invigorating sense of accomplishment. But more importantly, it sparked a growing clarity. Her story, crafted through hardships, wasn't just a personal history. It was a powerful tool. Days rolled into weeks, and Sarah immersed herself in a rhythm of research and collaboration with Nathan. They met regularly to refine their project, blending stories into data and breathing life into the numbers. Yet for Sarah, the context of her own life outside academia loomed large, prompting an inevitable confrontation with her past and its influences on her present. One evening, while organizing her notes at home, Sarah received a text from Nathan inviting her to a gala that favored the very social justice initiatives their presentation highlighted. Initially, excitement buzzed within her, but it was soon eclipsed by self-doubt. Could her past, with its layers of struggle and insecurity, fit in with the elite audience of well-off patrons? Would they see her for the woman she had become or for the waitress she had once been? After wrestling with her hesitations, she concluded that the gala represented a bridge, a stepping stone to confront the remnants of her insecurities. It was time to step into a new world with confidence. Getting ready that night, she donned a striking dress that felt symbolic, blending elegance with resilience. As she adjusted her hair in the mirror, she whispered to herself, This is your moment. Upon arriving at the gala, her senses flooded with sights and sounds she had only previously observed from a distance. The luxurious setting buzzed with laughter, conversation, and music. Yet even amid it all, a familiar wave of anxiety threatened to wash over her. She noticed groups of well-dressed individuals moving effortlessly. Exuding confidence and ease, everyone looked like they belonged, except for her. But as she caught Nathan's welcoming gaze across the room, solidarity replaced doubt. Together, they journeyed through conversations that bridged the gap between her experience and the elite landscape before her. With Nathan by her side, she gained footing. Each flowing conversation became an opportunity to articulate not just her ideas, but also the emotions embedded within them. As they spoke with representatives from various organizations, Sarah witnessed the power of storytelling resonate with each individual they encountered. They engaged in discussions on the profound impact of economic disparities and shared anecdotes that illuminated the human experiences behind systemic issues. This wasn't just networking. It was practicing the art of exchange, and Sarah felt her confidence solidify with every interaction. Late into the evening, a poignant moment emerged when the host acknowledged Sarah and Nathan for their insightful project. The audience turned toward them, applause echoing through the hall. Sarah grasped for her breath as she felt heat rise to her cheeks. Words of encouragement washed over her like a wave of affirmation. It was not merely a validation from peers. It was recognition of her evolution. She was no longer defined by her past, but by her contributions rich with personal narratives that had transformed into a call for social justice. In that radiant moment, Sarah understood that growth often redefined paths, and every step she had taken had brought her here, to a celebration of resilience. Tonight, she had conquered her fears, accepted the applause, and found a sense of belonging in this new landscape of opportunity. As the night disbanded and they stepped out into the cool night air, she turned to Nathan, gratitude swelling within her. "Thank you for believing in me," she said earnestly. "Always. This is just the beginning," he smiled. In the following days, Sarah's sense of purpose crystallized further. She began writing articles on economic equity, each piece carefully weaving together statistical analysis and personal narrative. She sought to be a catalyst for change, inspiring others to view numbers not as mere data, but as the foundation for real human stories. The culmination of her transformation became tangible when she was invited to speak at a local community event, a realm she never thought she could occupy. She stood at the podium, heart pounding with anticipation, ready to engage and inspire. "I stand before you as a reminder that every story matters," she declared, memories of her past enriching her voice. "Our journeys shape our perspectives, and together, we can advocate for those whose stories remain unheard." Afterward, audience members approached her with expressions of gratitude and connection. They shared their own experiences, harmonizing with Sarah's newly woven tapestry of resilience and hope. Through her steadfast commitment to authenticity and growth, Sarah understood she had reshaped not only her narrative but the landscapes around her. Her story was not one of struggle alone, but of triumph, possibility, and empowerment. With the world ahead of her, vibrantly colored by her narrative, Sarah knew that she had arrived not only in the realm of academia, but within her own identity, a place of unwavering achievement and unyielding courage. Now it is your moment. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Show your unwavering support by leaving a like now to feed the algorithm and ensure these transformative tales continue. Comment below with your reactions and theories about Sarah's incredible journey. Don't wait even one more second. Share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion and be inspired by the journey of personal growth.